Hello and welcome to Sarpy Outlook, a grassroots program dedicated to promoting democratic ideals from an issues-based perspective. This year we're focusing on candidates who embody those ideals by running for public office. My name is Randy Prier, and I'm very pleased to have as my guest on this program Michael O'Hara, Democratic candidate for Nebraska State Treasurer. Michael has a doctorate in economics and has been a faculty member in the UNO's College of Business Administration for over 30 years.
Yes.
He was also elected to the OPPD Board of Directors in 1988, serving one 6-year term. Truly warm welcome to you, Michael.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And first, I guess I ought to ask if I should call you Michael or Dr. O'Hara.
I use Michael.
Very good. Thank you. Well, I've asked Michael here so that our viewers can get to know him, as well as to understand the office of State Treasurer and the major issues in this campaign a little bit better. Well, first, Michael, we all may think we know what the Treasurer's office is all about, but just to establish some common understanding, can you tell us what the major responsibilities and functions of the State Treasurer's office are?
Certainly. The most visible is the unclaimed property. And this gets a lot of attention, but not enough work, I think, from the incumbent. Additionally, the main function is to do cash management. As checks come in and checks go out, the Treasurer's office is responsible for that.
So you collect the money and you pay the bills, is basically.
The Revenue Department collects the money and then transfers it to the Treasurer, then holds it.
Okay.
This improves the quality control on cash management.
I see.
Additionally, the state of Nebraska has a 529 plan. That's a federal tax clause for how you save for college. More unique to Nebraska, we have a long-term health care plan, and that is insurance, and you can save for it. Those are both run through this Treasurer's office, and they get scored very high relative to other ones. Then you also have the Treasurer's office is responsible for collecting through the website the payments that are ordered for child support and for alimony. There was always a problem where things would get paid, county courts wouldn't necessarily record everything, so now we've centralized that all in one spot. And most of those activities are back office, and no one knows what they are, but they're quite important. Another one is the legislature has ordered the Treasurer to make it easy for everyone to find out how we're spending our money.
Okay.
And my predecessor's predecessor scored a D. Shane Osborne scored a D in terms of transparency, and my opponent has raised it to a B+, but there's no reason it shouldn't be an A. Exactly. And it's very easy to see why or how to do that.
Okay. Well, all of those things are, as you indicated, perhaps a little bit behind the screen, if you will, but certainly, you know, as a grandparent and someone who has been on Social Security a few years, the 529 and the long-term care programs that you mentioned are interesting, and the others are important programs as well. Well, with that as a background, what made you decide to run for State Treasurer, and what you feel makes you the best choice to be elected?
Well, I won't sound the best choice because I don't like engaging in negative advertising.
Okay.
I think that really insults the voters. I can tell them what I stand for, what I would do, and then the voters get to choose as to who best matches their choices. I will provide greater transparency, greater efficiency, because I have experience in providing that as a business professor and as an OPPD director. I think that my focus on transparency will be far greater than the incumbent. That's adequate, but there's no reason to not be excellent. In terms of unclaimed property, I can see many areas where there just isn't enough done, and I look at that and I go, that's just wrong. The state citizens deserve much better, and that's why I'm running.
Okay. Well, as an economist and a business professor, what are your main areas of focus and expertise?
In teaching, I teach business law and economics, and research, you go over very many issues. Most of them I've tried to find where markets are not functioning perfectly. I went through a period where I was studying honeybees in detail.
Oh, is that right?
And currently been focusing my research on urban issues such as brownfield redevelopment. Brownfield is potentially contaminated property, and there are many areas in Bellevue, many areas all across the state in every small town where you have property that's previously used and you need to redevelop it.
So in your areas of expertise, you kind of gave a broad-based experience in how the market and how business and government, because that's heavily involved, how all of that runs.
Right. I first got started in electricity and wrote my economics dissertation on how do you regulate electric utilities, and that's how I ended up on OPPD. When serving there, I found out that it's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of joy to be able to do service well. Good, good.
Well, you've kind of indicated a little bit, but what do you hope to accomplish as treasurer? And in other words, what do you feel will be some of your major goals in office?
One thing I'd really like to do is increase the return under the unclaimed property. I think that there's been way too little effort. Just an example, every year, quite appropriately, the treasurer's office, regardless of who's in it, publishes a list of the unclaimed property. The last list that was published in, I think, March of this year listed First National Bank of Omaha in 15 counties.
Really?
They couldn't find the First National Bank of Omaha.
I see.
And one of the largest firms that was identified as owed money, they identified the top 10 in Douglas County.
Okay.
And they were owed between $50,000 and $500,000.
My goodness.
Couldn't find Robert Sterry. Now, I think that it could be done much better than that, and we should do much better than that. In terms of the back office activities, many of those are done by professionals, and you're just managing people and making sure you make the office run smoothly.
Sure.
And I think I can do that based on my experience at OPPD.
Okay. Well, Michael, you're running unopposed in the Democratic primary.
In the primary, yes.
Yes. And although he has some token opposition in the Republican primary, your likely opponent in the fall is going to be the incumbent, Don Stenberg. And this is a man who is well known. He is a perennial candidate and office holder, and someone who tends to use those offices to attempt to step up to some other office. So he's probably got a little bit of an advantage. He probably is also going to be pretty well funded. How will you approach the campaign in the fall, and how do you assess your chances?
I would be very hopeful. One advantage I have is that the more people that Don Stenberg meets, the more people that might choose to vote for me. He has a way of dealing with people that brings that out. He is very hardworking in that respect, and I'm hoping he will use that to my advantage. In terms of funding, I'm sure he'll have much more funding because he's run many statewide races, and this will be my first statewide race. But I think I'll be able to put forward a credible challenge. In addition to the incumbent, there's also a challenger on the Libertarian Party, and that opens doors if Republicans who are dissatisfied with Don and just can't bring themselves to vote for a Democrat, you might very well find them voting for a Libertarian. And so it's one reason I'm relatively optimistic.
Okay. Well, how has the campaign been going so far, particularly fundraising, which is so very important?
Fundraising, I have not tried to do any because I was unopposed in the primary. In the political phrase, didn't want to take any of the oxygen out of the room.
I see.
Because there are many people who are running difficult contested primaries. I will be started doing that in earnest right after the primary, and I would hope it to be very fruitful. I've funded myself initially, things like pay for the filing fees and initial materials to hand out, and I don't think that'll be a real problem.
Okay. Well, you have a chance now, with the camera in front of you, to directly address voters here in Sarpy County particularly, but since this is available on the internet, it's available to anyone who wants to see. What would your primary message be to those people who are trying to find out who the people are that are running for office and why they should vote for them?
Well, I'm Michael O'Hara, and I'm running for Nebraska State Treasurer. I would hope that you would choose to vote for me because I would be able to improve the services you receive from the State Treasurer's office. The unclaimed properties, I'm sure I can do a much better job than the incumbent has chosen to do. In terms of back office activities, While on OPPD, I was often the treasurer of the district and therefore have experience managing those type of activities. In terms of the 529 and the long-term care, I think they've been under-advertised, and I think bringing out that information would be very helpful. With respect to the long-term care savings, there are many people who get into great difficulty on those issues, and it's critical that they start saving early and in order to get the benefits of that, and I hope to bring that forward.
Well, very good. Well, you know, unfortunately, perhaps, some of the other statewide offices, other than governor, lieutenant governor, or United States Senate and Congress, don't get as much attention as they should, but they are very important to our state and the way that we operate. And so we're hopeful that by bringing you before our camera that people will get to have a little better insight into what the Office of Treasurer is all about, and you yourself as a candidate, so that they can go out there and certainly from our perspective ought to cast as many votes as they can for you.
Well, one each.
One each, one at a time.
I'm delighted to have the opportunity, and I hope they will vote, and I hope they'll choose me.
Well, Michael, we wish you all the best luck in the campaign, and we're very pleased to have had you with us on Sarpy Outlook, and as I said, hope you have a good fortune. Our guest today has been Michael O'Hara, Democratic candidate for the State Treasurer of Nebraska. My name is Randy Prier. Thank you, and have a good day.
Thank you.